How's it going? Anthony Farrow here, Create Sci-Fi. So today we're getting back into building props. I'm still working on Zenith Run, but need to take a break. Like VFX takes a while. I was getting cabin fever. So what is this? I think most of you know what this is. Laser tag. So I've done a lot of blaster mods on this channel, and you know, squirt guns and toy guns, but then I really started getting into video game controller guns. So I have a whole series of that I'll link for you. But somebody donated this to me. And it's a laser tag gun. It's already got some good weight. And just a really cool donor piece, right? So we're gonna go ahead and modify this. I'm gonna try some different kind of paint on this, maybe do some graphite metallic stuff, but I'm excited, right? So let's jump right in. All right, as always, take a look at it and think, oh, okay, here we go. A lot of potential there in my hands. All right, so first thing I gotta do is clean this up. This is from a Goodwill, so it has like a Goodwill sticker on there, which is challenging to get off, so I use a little rubbing alcohol, a little isopropyl alcohol, scrub pad, and just gotta get in there. 8-Bit Guy, I watch that channel, he just gets in there with his thumbnail. So you get that cleaned up. Now I want to sand off all the logos. Lots of times on these guns, there's that raised text, warnings, and things like that, branding. So I have these small files that I just get in there. And then now, always with these, you have this seam, right? The main seam running down the middle. So I get rid of that as best I can, usually just a good sanding with your emery stick or your sanding stick. And then here, this is a laser gun, so laser tag gun. So it's got this glass in there. For some reason, I feel, I thought about this for a while, went back and forth, and I think the glass, which maybe would be accurate if this was a real weapon, I think it just distracts, and I think just having the depth there of the hollow is more intimidating, like a gun barrel. But I realize that's a little too deep and strange in there since I took out the glass. So I just have a little scrap craft foam here, and I'm just going to glue this in the back. I definitely want to have it recessed so that it'll create that illusion. Again, like I always say here, this stuff is usually for film when I make it, so that'll get lost in a good way. So now, sanding. Always sanding, right? So first I just take some 220, go over the whole thing. Then I usually next go over it with a Scotch-Brite. That's just to make sure that I get everything. It's more of sort of like a follow-up, policing the area. And then finally, I always use steel wool. That just helps to make the plastic a little more grippy. That's the technical term, grippy. So that the paint will stick better. And also it's just good for getting into those hard to reach places, especially with these space guns. There's always some unique parts that the steel wool really helps out. So we think, let's clean this up. So, you just want to get rid of all your fingerprints and grease and anything you might have got on there on the bench before you go to the next step. So now we got to fill these screw holes. They're pretty deep in this, so I got some Bondo. You just want to make sure you're working in a ventilated area. This is actually a garage shop. I got the big door open when I'm doing this. And you want to put the right amount of hardener. You just want to mix that in there good. Make sure you get the whole thing. You don't want like an unmixed patch. Because what happens is it takes all this time and then it dries. And then if something's wrong, you got to repeat the whole process. So now you want to get it deep in those holes. They're usually with toys and things like this, they are pretty egregious, right? So just be careful to get it all in there. And you want to try not to destroy the design. Sometimes you'll get a big clunk of Bondo into some cool design into the piece, and you got to sand it all out. So now I got various files and sandpaper. We want to get that Bondo cleaned up. Ideally, you just get it cleaned up right to where it's just that hole that you filled and not much going on around it. And this on the bottom was some sort of connector where I just filled the whole thing in there. That's all looking pretty good. I got that soft pad with the 220 grit. So now I have this screen, and I was thinking about if I should just paint that or put a greebly on it. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it. So I'm just putting a piece of masking tape over the LCD screen there, just because I want to have that look. And I'm going to put a coat of black primer over the whole thing. Right? So there it is primed, and then we get to see what didn't work out so great. So here's the Bondo, and it just needs a little bit of filler. So we get out the spot putty, the air drying spot putty, and we're just going to put in all the little pock marks and scratches that our primer shows off that we didn't quite get with the Bondo, or when we sanded, if we maybe gouged it a little too much. And you just put a thin coat of this on. It dries pretty quick. You know, you wait about a half an hour, go have lunch or dinner, and then you come back and more sanding. I just used all 220 grit on this, and then you know, you don't want to sand all that off, but you just want to get it so that it's in there, cleaning up the divots and scratches. So this is looking good. So now I'm just gonna put another coat of primer on top of that, right? So that's much better. And then now I'm going to put on this color shift paint. I had this from another project that I never used, and I thought, you know what, this is a good place to test this. And that came out really cool. I'm really happy with that. I think if it was just that, it would be a little bit much, but I want to do some black highlights on here, and I'm going to weather it up, so I think it'll be cool. So now I have the masking tape and this really nice Tamiya tape that you get from the model shop. And what I want to do is there's certain areas like the barrel, and there's some like heat sink looking parts on here. And I'm going to paint those a really high gloss black, because we're going to come back later and hit it with a graphite treatment. So now that looks like overkill, but trust me, if you just get a little tiny bit of overspray, it's such a pain to clean up, right? So while that paint is drying, I want to add just a foam grippy handle grip to this. It's always like nice for the actor or the person using it, and it's one of those little easy touches that gives it a real subtle breath of reality, right? So I have the advantage here where I had two of these guns, so while the other one's drying, I can use this one to make my templates. So what I'm going to do is I just have some like 2mm craft foam, and I just want to make some grippy handles, right? It's going to be a cool non-reflective surface, and sometimes I've done this with Plastidip, but in this case I wanted to make actual pieces, right? So there's those templates that we just made from the painter's tape, and I'm going to cut these out. And you know, these templates are really nice when you make them from the tape like this, because it's pretty much exactly what you need to do. And I always put those aside, because sometimes you could still cut something wrong, so don't toss those out. Keep them on hand till you're done. And, you know, I get to test fit them on this other gun, and yeah, I think it's just going to be a nice little touch, right? So now here's the peel porn, right? Just peeling off the masking tape, which is always satisfying. So, yep, that worked out nice. It's just, you got to take it off right at the right moment, right? Not completely dry, not tacky enough where you could ruin it, but, you know, so this is now actually the next day, right? So I let that all dry. So now, you know, I have my nail polish trick. Whenever I'm doing buttons and little things, I just love to use the nail polish, right? It's just easy. It's like a gel. It's really glossy, and I just find it's a really nice solution for buttons. So I have these little buttons on the back here, and it just also just breaks up the paint job, right? You have this paint job that's all one color, just like a little button. It's just a nice little breakup. So I hit the whole thing with clear, and you see like that red one there, like that red button. Looks good. So now I'm just going to dry brush just a little bit of silver we want to, you know, we're going to weather this, but before I weather it, I just want to have this like scratched up look on the paint job. Just helps to sell that, you know, this is metal, not a piece of plastic. So now, off camera, right, I put a clear coat on that. So now we have the graphite. So everything that's black, I'm going to rub this graphite into it. And boy, this graphite, it's just like magic. I just, you know, I was tempted to do the whole gun with this, but I've done that before, and I wanted to try this color shift paint. But there's just something about this graphite treatment, especially, you know, because I'm using these for film. It just, like, look at that dome there. Like, I'm speechless, believe it or not. It's just, you know, the proof, the eyes have it, right? The proof is in the pudding. There it is right there. It looks great. All right, so now I have these grippy pieces that I want to glue on, and I'm just going to super glue these on. There might be better ways to do that, but, you know, I just wanted to get it done. So I'm putting the super glue on there, and there it is. I mean, that was pretty straightforward. I did scratch up the paint a little bit off camera so that I had something to stick to. So now let's just real quick. You can't really see it in the video here because, you know, it's doing its job. But when you're looking at it directly, it's too shiny inside there. So I just put some flat black paint in the barrels. Now here's just showing off the color shift. It's subtle, but it's pretty cool. Right? Yeah. No, you can see that. So that's cool. All right. So now I'm taking off the masking for the screen. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put 2, 3, 4 in each corner, just a little pinprick, right? So that's subtly that's there. But if I decide to comp in a screen later on film, if I want to put something in there, that'll be tracking marks. All right, so now this foam is pristine. We have a weathered, scratched up gun. I just have this old laser blaster, or this lightsaber handle from like the dollar store. And I'm just trying to put some unique sort of indentations and things that, you know, make this look like it had a little bit of a life, right? Yeah, and that looks good. All right, so now the weathering. All right, so here's my water-based oil paints, and I really like these. They take a long time to dry, but really has like a realistic look to it. And, you know, you're just finding the recesses. What I like to do is, you know, when I put it in places and wipe it off, and it actually is hard to wipe off, then I know that I'm onto something. And I always use some combination of burnt sienna and black. Typically, if it's a color like this, I'll use the burnt sienna. The black is, you know, like the trigger or like places like those vents. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so let's take a look at the beauty shots. Really happy with that color. I don't usually do color if you follow my channel, and, you know, it's good to get out of your comfort zone once in a while. And I like the shift. I know that if I'm using this on a film, it'll be a nice, subtle, you know, add some life to it. Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, that graphite, boy. Oh, I'm never growing tired of using that graphite treatment. I'm happy with this. That came out great, right? The two-tone paint, very cool. And then, you know, this is so in case we want to put a screen on there, but then I made it subtle so that, you know, if we don't, that's fine. The grippies. But what I like about the grippies is even though like practically it feels awesome for the actor too, it just adds sort of a third reflective or non-reflective element that I think works really nicely. And then that graphite. Yeah. So, well, I guess the only thing left to do now is to fire it up. Okay. Ooh. Double barrel. All right, over there. Whoa! That was awesome. Okay, one more. I put a big hole over there, so let's do it over here. That was awesome. Well, as always, I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I love to read the comments, and be sure to check out the merch shop. I'm wearing an Evil Ted shirt proudly. He's the OG of cosplay foam, practicing what I preach. When you buy the shirts, it really helps to support the channel, right? So check out the merch shop. We got hats, shirts. That really helps. And we have rainbow colors now. For all you non-goth people out there. Well, just remember, I'm here to help make sci-fi.